Hello everyone and welcome back to our YouTube channel, Sharang and Sharwari. First of all, thank you so much to all of our subscribers for all the love, for all the comments. They're always appreciated. We try to read most of them and we try to respond to most of them. And yeah, the response has been overwhelming and we are humbled and grateful for that. Today's topic is the Pareto Principle, how it becomes a driver of economic inequality in society, which in turn ends up destabilizing societies. Um, this topic was my idea and one of my key interests, so to speak. So that is why I decided to do a solo video about it. And without further ado, I will jump straight into the topic. What exactly is the Pareto principle? It's also known as the Matthew principle because of the verb from the Bible. Christians in the comments can cite the exact verse, but it goes something like, "To those who have nothing." To those who have everything, more will be given, and from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. So, this is the Matthew principle, and it seems like a pretty brutal and unfair rule, right? But it is also known as the 80-20 rule. That is, it applies to businesses in the sense that if you are a business and you have a bunch of clients, then it's a given that 20% of your clientele will drive 80% of the revenue. So, it's important in all business to focus on those 20% of the clients who will drive most of your revenue generation. That can be done, for example, by identifying key demographics. For example, if you're a makeup company, surprise, surprise, your key demographic is young women, so you focus on them and you market. You tailor your marketing strategy specifically for them. But it's also seen in places as diverse as, for example, in physics. For example, in astrophysics, when the universe is being formed and when planets are forming, do you know that, again, much like the Matthew principle, 20% of the planets will have 80% of the mass. Same goes for stars. Um, Similarly, when it comes to rock stars and how many copies rock stars sell, right? Like you find something like 20% of rock stars drive 80% of revenue generation, and you find it at each levels of the hierarchy. So whenever you take a team, you will find that a small minority of people in that team are the most productive and they do most of the work done by the team. And this is one of the many reasons why communism is a bad idea, because it fails to take this into account. um, what is classical economics? Classical economics is a system where the key model, right, the basic unit of a classical model is known as the Homo economicus. Homo economicus is the rational man, or the man who always makes the most fiscally responsible decision, and in every action he exercises fiscal jurisprudence. That's the Homo economicus, and this is considered the basic unit to make any kinds of assumptions about the market. Obviously, this is a very, let's say, this theory has a lot of lacunae and holes, for the simple reason is that human beings are crazy monkeys and who often make insane irrational choices, which cannot be quantified, and that is why this theory runs into a wall. But how is this relevant to modern economics? It's relevant to economics in the sense that I want you to think of a system, right? I want you to think of an ideal world where we have economic parity, where everyone, let's say, has a basic income of $1,000 or $100 every day, right? This is the perfect world. Now, in this world, right, people will be born with differing talents, right? Some people will just be born smarter and some people will be born dumber. Conscientiousness, that is the ability to put in hard work on a single task, is also to some extent genetically determined. So basically, in that population, some people will just be born smarter and more hardworking, and others will also be born who just get lucky. And because of this, the way Pareto principle works and it operates, inevitably, it is inevitable because it has been tried again and again, that whenever you run any economic model, whenever you run any economic system, even the fair ones, just by random statistical probability, a small minority ends up owning the vast majority of goods. A classic example would be a game of Monopoly, right? What happens in Monopoly? All players start off at zero essentially, but then the first player who's lucky enough to end up in a house, quote unquote, gets to own that house, so to speak, and the next player who has who has the misfortune of landing on that place has to pay rent to that guy, so on and so forth. So what happens in Monopoly at the end, just by random statistical probability, and it's basically a game of chance. Not much you can do about what numbers you can get on a bunch of dice. The only strategy is just to buy a bunch of property as much as you can and wait. So even in Monopoly, some guy ends up owning most of it. And this is the key problem with modern economics. And this is one of the key problems of capitalism, that it has supercharged the economy. So the capitalism is great at generation of wealth, and a lot of wealth has been generated. But as we can see in the modern world, is that the gains of that wealth has not accrued in a way that's proportionate. The rich people have gotten more and more wealthy. The economic gap between the rich and poor has increased further and further. Why is this dangerous, and why this ultimately destabilizes society? Simple reason: young men who have nothing to lose and who are disenfranchised. So if the young men any society are deprived from economic opportunities, they feel like they own nothing. They don't have any prospects to rise up in life, and they feel that the Pareto principle or random chance has screwed them so much that they have no chance at a life. Then they will flip the table and they will engage in viva de la revolution, that is a bloody violent revolution. This is also a pattern in history seen again and again, and it's often seen with crime, is that economic inequality is a standard predictable driver for crime. So more the economic inequality in a neighborhood, chances are more will be the crime, because that leads to status competition amongst men using whatever means necessary, sometimes violent, to accrue more money, and this ends in mass bloodshed. What can be done about this principle? It is important to know that this principle is not some conspiracy, because people, when they see that, oh, economics, some people have all the money, they begin to think in conspiratorial ways. Historically, Jews have always been blamed for, oh, you guys have most of the money or whatever. So it's important to avoid such conspiratorial modes of thinking. It's not that there's some evil conspiracy to deprive the world and deprive the poor of money. It's just a law of nature. It's a fundamental law of nature. So when Marx criticized the problem, he didn't criticize it enough, so to speak. Uh, because it is a fundamental flaw, it is a fundamental property of nature for money to accrue most of the times. In the same way that mass accrues to a few minority of planets, money tends to accrue. One of the reasons for this is also that once you have some money, it's quite easy to get more money, and when you have a lot of money, it's even easier to get even more. So for example, let's say you have I'll speak in Indian terms. Let's say you have 10 crores in the bank account. That's a lot of money, right? If you already have 10 crores, it's relatively easy to go from 10 crores to 20 crores, but it would be very, very, very difficult, almost impossible, to start from 100 rupees to 10 crores, to go there, right? Why would it be easy? Investments. What do all rich people do? They invest their money. They have a diversified investment portfolio. That is, they invest their money in a lot of diverse different sources, and they have assets. Poor people just, they have to spend most of their paycheck just to survive, whereas rich people spend a very small fraction of their net income on meeting their daily needs, and the rest of that money is all put into investments. They can invest in gold, they can invest in the stock market, they can invest in some companies, whatever. Their assets accrue value with time, right? So poor people will often spend a lot of their life's money just to buy a car, just to buy a home, things like that. But rich people, they don't. They will buy assets whose value will appreciate over time. So instead of just buying one house, they'll buy multiple houses, rent all those out, and then mint money of those. So this is one of the reasons, and it's important to know that this principle, if taken far enough, will just lead to a very unequal, very unstable, very horrible society, which will be a breeding ground for revolt. So in order to stop this, the solution is just that we have higher taxes on the rich, and that they pay their fair share to the nation and into nation building. I'm not talking about communism. I'm not a communist. That's a murderous, bloody ideology. What I'm trying to say is that some amount of socialism, some amount of income wealth redistribution is critical for the survival of the society. With this, I would like to end my monologue. Let me know in the comments what you think, what you feel. If you agree with me, you disagree with me. Thank you for all the love. Like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye.